Hey everyone, this is Pastor Paul here, and I'm sitting here with Lisa Albright, and I'm very excited to share with you the story of her recent adventure. Not too long ago, we sent Lisa and her husband Michael and son Taylor on a trip to Africa in Uganda on a mission to discover the need there and the viability of Charity Church working to help support these folks there in a long-term fashion. And so she's back from that trip and has some information to share with us. And we're just listening to the Lord about what the future may hold. We believe as a church that we're supposed to be doing missions, both local and foreign. Obviously, we have Charity House 2 doors down from the church, but we also should be doing something in parts of the world where they're struggling just to put food on the table. And so, Lisa, thank you so much for going and risking it all and taking your family. And so give us just a little bit about your experience, what you saw, what you encountered, and tell us.
We're able to visit Tobius in his house. His family and neighbors prepared a beautiful meal for us, and so that's where we went first, was to visit his family. They live in Kampala. Then we traveled from there to Hoima, which was several hours drive away, 4 or 5 hours drive away, and so that was kind of our home base for most of the trip. And then we went from there down to Kiseke, which is where the orphans that Jericho Child Foundation works with, that's where they are. And so we went to Kiseke, and we're able to visit their, many of the orphans, the homes where they are placed in. We saw the church there, the well that they have in their village, and we also saw the need that they have there.
So maybe some of you are on Facebook with us and you've identified a friend that we have as a mutual friend. I think it's Asimwe, and I used to think it was Tobius or something, but it's Tobias?
It's Tobias.
Tobias, okay, I thought it was Tobias and it's Tobias. But over the last probably year or two, just some from our church family have been able to support them. I know we gathered some funds outside of the church organization, just in the church family, sent over money to buy them all some clothing for Easter. There have been other things that we've been able to do, and I know just even since Lisa's been back, their country went on another extended lockdown from COVID, and they've not been able to return to school. They didn't have food. And so we were able to send some money that fed the orphans for another month.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So any other things like that you know of that we've done already? Or did I mention them?
Well, we have school fees. We've sent money for school fees, but then we've kind of withheld that money in a savings account there because of the lockdown. There's no point in paying for the school fees when they're not able to go to school. So we'll just hold that money until the schools are reopened, and then we'll pay for them to return next term.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about what you know about Tobias and his heart and his ministry, what he's doing there.
Okay, so what I know about him, he was raised in a village outside of Hoima, and then as he became an adult, he learned to be a plumber. That was his trade, and so he moved to Hoima hoping to work as a plumber and couldn't find work, and then ended up on the streets and was found by a pastor there. And that pastor fed him every day, physically fed him every day, but then also was feeding the Lord to him. And he gave his life to Christ, became a minister, and then God has placed it on his heart. He started a church in Hoima, and then God moved him to Kampala. So his church is still in Hoima, but he lives in Kampala. And then he's traveled around Uganda preaching, and as he's been traveling and moving around, he's just encountered so many orphans, and God just placed it on his heart to start Jericho Child Foundation. And so God gave him a vision of this Kiseke, which was a village he had never heard of. And so he went there and talked to the town councilman and tried to make arrangements with them. And so he's kind of gathered all of the orphans that he's found, and some of them are from Kiseke, but many of them are from other places in Uganda. But they're all there, so they're in one place and can be cared for easier. And then he has a maize field, which they use to grow maize, corn, and they make that into flour and make it into posho, and so that's used to help feed them. They also have a pig farm that he runs, and that does a couple of things. One, it teaches the kids how to pig farm, so they're learning a trade, but then they're also able to eat the pig, or if they need money for school fees or something like that, they can sell pigs. And so, it kind of supports them in several different ways. And so he has lots of moving parts to this ministry to try to help support all 40 of the orphans.
So in general, Tobias contacted us with the heart of having us help him take care of about 40 orphans.
Yeah.
And so you were there and you got to meet some of these kids.
I did.
Tell us what you saw.
So several of them just tugged at my heartstrings. Anita is sick often, and I didn't get to the bottom of what causes her to be sick, but I know that she's sick often. The week before I was there, she was in the hospital, and I saw pictures of her, hooked up to an IV in hospital. And I witnessed Tobias paying her hospital bill. But she was smiling and she had her smart clothes on. That's the Easter clothes that you all had sent. In there they call them their smart clothes. And so they when I was there, they were all dressed up in their smart clothes, so she's one that is near to my heart. Her father had 8 wives, and he passed away and left all 8 of his wives and all of their children in just dire poverty. And so several of her brothers and sisters are in a part of Jericho Child Foundation, and so they're part of the orphanage. And then another one, Ezra, is the oldest orphan. He's been in school the longest. He's what they call S1, which is kind of like a freshman in high school. So he speaks the best English. In Uganda, they learn English at school. It's not what they learn at home. It's not the language they speak in their villages, but it's the official language of the country. And so they learn English at school. So he was able to talk to me the most because he knew the most English and felt the most confident with it. He read a poem to me. But when I was there, he was one of the few orphans that have been to school recently because of the lockdown, but he had missed the last 2 weeks of school because he didn't have the money. They didn't have the money to send him. And so his face lit up when I said, when the school's open, I will pay for you to go. I will make sure that you can go to school. And his face lit up. And I just wish I could capture that for so many of our American kids and have them be as excited about going to school. I don't know who it was. Someone here at Charity, right before we left, donated a small amount of money and said, take this with you. And so I prayed over it and I was like, God, what are we supposed to do with this money? And so he just led me to bring a soccer ball. They love football there, and so we stopped at Walmart and bought a soccer ball and took it with us. And so Taylor, my son, gave it to the orphans as we were leaving, and Ezra was chosen as the one to be the keeper of the soccer ball and the pump because he's the oldest, and so he was chosen as the one. But a funny story about that soccer ball, just like I was there for several hours and took hundreds of pictures, and the kids didn't smile. And the adults around them didn't smile, and then some of the townspeople did. When I was walking through town, they would smile for pictures, but many of them just didn't smile. And I kept saying, why aren't they smiling? Why aren't they smiling? But legitimately, the smiles came out when that soccer ball came out. Yeah. Their faces, those boys lit up when they saw that soccer ball.
Well, I know you mentioned to me that you had asked Tobias, why don't they smile?
Yeah, why don't they smile? And his response was, they don't have anything to smile about. And so many of, the orphans, they get care from Tobias, but the other kids in Kiseke don't get that. They might have both of their parents, but they still don't have any. They live in dire poverty. They don't speak any English, so I couldn't communicate with them. But They've never been to school. They don't have a hope of going to school. There's no jobs in Kiseke. There's no industry. There's no way to make money. They do farm. They do have farms and gardens, but they don't grow enough there to sell. So they don't make any money or profit off of it. It's just enough to feed them. And so they don't have hope of a future. And so when I asked, why don't they smile? He said, because they don't have anything to smile about.
And I just think it's so, I want just to fill in the blanks a little bit with that story. Somebody felt the Holy Spirit tell them to send you with $6. $6. And that small amount of money was the one thing, just out of obedience, that someone had that put smiles on the faces of all of those kids.
Yeah.
And I think that's so beautiful. You know, we emphasize that around here. Look, it doesn't matter whether it's $6 or $6,000. Obey the Holy Spirit about this. God is up to something in this exploration of what God has for us in Africa, in Uganda, and in particular in Kiseke.
Yeah.
Kiseke is a little town village with mud huts, primarily.
With thatch roofs.
Thatch roofs. Just over 1,000 people in this small community in Uganda. So what we're doing right now is just asking the Lord, what can we do? How can we make a radical difference?
Yeah.
You know, we've had conversations about, dreaming. And when I say dream, I don't mean what can we do? It's really, what does the Lord want done? But I think Charity Church has the potential of making a radical difference in the city or the town of Kiseke with just over 1,000 people. We're about 500 people on an average attendance around here right now. So we can make a difference. If just $6 can make all the orphans smile, we can help provide education, we can help provide food, clothing, and who knows what else. I'm excited about that.
Yeah. A smile, a hope, just knowing that they're not forgotten, that God has not forsaken them.
Absolutely. Any other things about any of the orphans that you encountered, any stories you want to share or encounters that you had?
Agnes has, both of her parents have passed away. She lives with an auntie. She has a younger sister. Her auntie took both of them in. And when we were there, I couldn't communicate with the auntie because she doesn't speak English. And so, but she was in tears. And it wasn't tears of joy. It was definitely tears of despair. And so, so many, I wish I knew the story. I wish I knew where those tears were. But,
well, the general setup over there, I think Tobias has it set up that these orphans stay with people in that village, in their homes.
Right.
And so he's working to funnel help financially for food, for school, into these homes. There's not a building where these orphans all gather together.
Right, there's no building, and there's no school. There's no school anywhere in Kiseke. There used to be, a man started a school there, but he passed away several years ago, and the buildings are just in disrepair. And so there used to be a school there, but there's no building.
There's no school, there's no orphanage, there's no central location where they can all gather and be taught. And these are things that we're thinking about, we're praying about. What if Charity Church could come in? I know right now there's some acreage for sale there in that community. 4 acres, I think?
Well, it's not the land where the school used to be. His son inherited that land. The man that started the school, his son inherited it. He hasn't done anything with that land, so we feel like he would probably sell that land to us. But that land is probably not big enough. I mean, if we're dreaming of a school and an orphanage and maybe a clinic, there's no health care in Kiseke. Right. If we're dreaming of of those things, that land is not enough. But behind that is a banana field, and there's some other properties just right around it that I think if we were able to get all of those properties that are right around that school, it would be right around 4 acres.
Wow, okay. And then, so we're just thinking, and we're dreaming, and we're praying about what kind of potential long-term that we could have, what kind of an effect that we could have there just to bring relief, and obviously bring the gospel of Jesus Christ. Jesus brings joy, and so additionally, we bring hope and we bring help with food and education and industry. You know, let's figure out a way where these people can create jobs and create a living, make a living. So we're just praying and thinking about all of that. I want to say thank you so much for taking the risk. It's not the safest place in the world. And you and Michael and Taylor went there, and I know you came back and got a little sick, but you're all better now.
I'm all better now.
So, Charity Church, I want to say thank you so much for your generosity in every way. We do give thousands, tens of thousands of dollars every single year to missions, and that's foreign and local. So we're feeding people here in our city, putting clothes on people in our city, helping people get free from addictions in our city, but we also have to be doing that in the other parts of the world. It's a commission to go ye into all the world and to preach the gospel. And so I'm so thankful for people like Lisa who are willing to go and willing to do whatever it is that the Lord is asking. So let's just be in prayer. I just want to put a seed in your spirit today to be in prayer with us as we think about and pray about what God would have us do there in Kiseke, Uganda, Africa. I love you and thank you so much.